Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I know I've been MIA, but I have recently just given birth to the most beautiful baby ever. And if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, then you guys won't know that I did actually have a little baby boy. So, so I just wanted to give you guys a little brief story time. And if you guys are not interested in these videos, it's okay. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I just wanted to share my birth story with you guys because I have been getting lots of questions about my birth story. I'm just going to touch up on a few things that I've gotten questions on, just so that way I can just share some things with you guys, since I have not talked to you guys in such a long time. I haven't been ready to film yet because adjusting to mommy life is definitely been the biggest change in my entire life ever. Like, I thought things were going to go a lot differently. I thought my birth was going to go a lot differently, and that's why I'm here to film this video, to just kind of catch you guys up on that. Pretty much my birth story went nothing like I expected. You guys know, if you've been following me on Instagram, that I have been super active all the way up until delivery. I know they say that it's a lot easier to give birth and push out the baby if you're a lot more physically in shape. It's just better for you and just makes it an easier process and stuff like that with pushing. There were days I did not even want to exercise or do anything, but I still gave myself that motivation to say, you are going to appreciate this and be super grateful once I deliver this baby. So that's what kept me motivated to keep continuing to work out and be active and be healthy throughout my pregnancy. So this is why I really wanted to have the baby natural. I know that I move at 1,000,000 miles per hour. I already have sessions booked in September. I am already pretty booked out. So I knew that I did not want anything to harm my body. So I didn't want to have an epidural because I was really scared to have something in my back, and also something very permanent and damaging to my body. I know a lot of percent of people have very great experiences with the epidural, but I didn't want to be that small percentage and risk having pain or messing up my body for the rest of my life for just this short period of time. So I really was going in there not going to have the epidural whatsoever. I was determined, and the more people told me, like, don't be a hero, you don't have to do that, like, just get the epidural, I was like, kind of like, I know my body, I know I'm strong, and I know I can do it without the epidural. Not so much as being hard-headed, but this kind of just gave me that motivation, like, I know who I am and I know I'm strong enough, so I know I don't need it. With that being said, I want to kind of give you that story ahead of time. Alright, I'm kind of going to try to make this as short and sweet as possible with giving you as much descriptions as I can. So Saturday, August 4th, I went out shopping with my cousin. She was getting stuff ready for her wedding, and we were just getting all that preparation ready. Basically, I was on my feet walking around in the mall all day long, pretty much. So by the time I got home with my husband, it was probably about 10 or 11. By the time we relaxed and watched a movie, it was like 12:31 almost. So a friend had recommended to us that we should try to pump because it starts contractions. So at this point, we were already a week past our due date. My doctor was very persistent that if I didn't have the baby by Monday, because she had let me go a week over, then she was going to induce me and try to get this baby to come, because she did not want it to go to the 2-week park past due. She really said it's not great for the baby. I didn't want to get induced. I wanted to try to do this as natural as I possibly could. So when my friend recommended that to me, I had pretty much tried everyone's recommendations. Trust me, I tried it. I did. I walked. I drank teas. I did this. I did that. Like, I did everything minus the castor oil, because I heard that that could be kind of bad for you. So I didn't even want to risk that. But everything else healthy, I tried it. I had no luck. So when my friend told me to just start pumping, that it creates contractions naturally and will help you dilate and get you further along? I was like, I don't know. I felt very hesitant about it. I gave it a shot because I had a hand pump already, so I figured why not. So before we went to bed, I definitely tried doing that, me and my husband. I did like 3 to 4 minutes on each boob. I was already starting to feel like cramps in my stomach, what I thought were cramps, but it actually ended up being contractions. But I started feeling these cramps, and I was like telling my husband, I'm feeling something, but I'm not sure what it is, if it's Braxton Hicks or if it's contractions or just cramps. I don't even know. Obviously this is my first kid, so I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know what felt like what, and I didn't want to be a false alarmer. It was like probably 1:32 when we went to sleep, and about 3 o'clock I woke up because I was starting to feel very uncomfortable, and the contractions, which I thought were just cramps, were starting to get a little bit more frequent. So I didn't want to wake my husband, so probably about 4:35 I was like, I had to wake him up because I was like, something is happening with my body and I think the baby might be coming. So I told him, I think I'm having contractions because these cramps have not stopped at all. So he was like, okay, let's get ready, let's shower. We'll slowly get ready and we'll start timing them. Let me know every single time you get a contraction. So we were starting to time them, and probably about 7 o'clock they were a lot more consistent, about 3 to 6 minutes apart. Since we live about an hour away, I didn't really want to wait super long, and then I know it was my first baby, but I didn't want to wait super long. About 8:30 is when we finally ended up leaving. I had already called my parents, and they actually were there at the hospital before I was.
It's natural. It's excitement. It's a little bit of fear. It's a little bit of anxiety, but it's all natural. No stress. You're okay. You're gonna do well. I don't blame you. There's a lot of emotions happening right now. You're gonna meet our little baby today. My little mama's having her baby, but she had to make one more stop before we got to the hospital. Starbucks. Love you.
About 9 o'clock, 9:15 is when we actually got there. It was so full. I guess apparently they were having so many babies that day that they didn't even have a room for me. Finally, around 10 a.m. I was tested to see if I was actually having contractions and how far dilated I was. When they took me back, they noticed that I was contracting every 3 to 4 minutes and I was 4 centimeters dilated already. They were like, you're gonna have this baby today. But we were so excited. We were like, okay, today's finally the day. So about 2 hours later, at around 12 o'clock is when they finally had a room ready for us so we could actually go inside and start laboring there. Which was really nice to have our own room instead of just being in the open kind of area. So once we were actually in the room, they started to test me again to see how I was doing, if I was dilated anymore, and also how far my contractions were. At this point, my contractions were starting to get farther apart. So the thing about whenever you're contracting, if you're not contracting more frequently, your body doesn't have time to start dilating more. So if it's more spaced out, it's going to take a lot longer for your body to dilate, if it will even dilate even more at that point. So at this point, I was not dilating as much. I don't think I was dilating anymore. So we started walking around the hospital. They only let us walk in a certain area. I started doing squats. I was trying to get this baby to come. I didn't feel any pain. I felt like some discomfort when the contractions would come, but definitely not anything serious or bad because I had bad period cramps, so I didn't feel like they were anything horrible. at all. I actually thought they were not bad.
So I went to help Marina get up off the bed. I had my little badge. And when I got up, she hugged my ID card and it's on her chin.
So when they finally came to check on me about 2 or 3 hours later, they noticed I was about 5 centimeters dilated and my contractions were still 4 minutes apart at this point. Okay, so they came back to check on me about 4 hours later. They were constantly checking me, but 4 hours later is when they checked to see how I was doing dilated wise. So I was about 7 to 8 centimeters dilated at this point, but they really wanted to get this process going, so they recommended for me to get my water broken at this point. And I was really like, I didn't want to get my water broken. I wanted it to happen naturally beforehand, but at this point we had already been waiting so long. Like I said, it was about 6:30. I wanted to get this process going soon because I know there's always a limit at hospitals that they don't like you to be in labor super long, that they will just start recommending C-sections, and I did not want that to happen at all. Like, that was the farthest thing that I wanted, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want an epidural, because I didn't want any possible risk to my body. I wanted to make sure I was as healthy as I possibly could be, and nothing would harm my body for later on, so that way I could be the best right after birth and just be able to move around and take care of my baby and not need to be taken care of instead. About 6:30 they broke my water, which was the craziest feeling ever because I thought for some reason it would be painful, but honestly it wasn't. It just feels like warm water running down you all of a sudden when they break it. Not painful at all whatsoever. And then they said if you want to bounce on the ball, we definitely recommend that. That will help you with your contractions and stuff because they're going to start to get a little bit more frequent with us breaking your water. So I started hopping on the ball, and at a certain point, I'm not kidding you guys, like water just kept gushing out, like gushing out and gushing out. And I was freaking out because I didn't know that was normal. At this point, I was like trying to stay as calm as possible because the more you freak out, I feel the more your body tenses up, then it's more painful throughout the contractions. So the biggest tip that I can tell you is just don't freak out. Try to breathe through it, because if you do freak out, it just gets your body more tense and it's definitely a lot more painful. And I just recommend trying to relax, put on some relaxing music. I had on worship music throughout my entire delivery, and it was just so relaxing in there. Even though it did start to get a lot more painful, I felt like that helped keep me just calm because I knew that God had it under control and that it was all in His hands. So about 8:30 they came back in to check on me, and at this point I was already 9 centimeters dilated, which was perfect. My contractions were about 2 to 3 minutes apart. I was super excited about it. I was like, yes, oh my gosh, we're only 1 centimeter away. I feel great. Like, I feel like I was managing these contractions and they were painful at times, don't get me wrong. Like, it wasn't like it was easy, but it was definitely manageable as long as you were in the right mind space. I also forgot to mention that around 6 o'clock when they did check me, they also noticed that the baby had already made a bowel movement, and they said that they really wanted to get this delivery going because it's not really healthy for the baby to have a bowel movement inside of there once the water has been broken. That was definitely something they were concerned about, and they were hoping that my contractions and dilation would speed up a lot faster, so that way it really wouldn't be a concern as long as we got the process going. At this point, it had already been about 2 to 3 hours that the baby was in there with the bowel movement that they noticed. They were like, we're gonna keep watching you, but we cannot check you super often to see how dilated you are because it could cause infection. Now they had to just base it on how I was feeling and stuff like that. So I tried to really stay calm because I knew everything was gonna be okay with the baby. But around 10:30, the nurse came back in and said, okay, you still have not had the baby, and the doctor is really going to come in here and want you to get the Pitocin to start getting your body to contract more, to open up. So it had already been 2 hours since I was 9 centimeters, and I hadn't moved at all. From this point, it was 10:30, so I was like very hesitant, you guys. I didn't want the Pitocin. I didn't want my water broken, so I was like, what do I do? Again, I know I'm on a time limit because the baby had already made a bowel movement, and I did not want to have a C-section. So I agreed to the Pitocin to see if my body can start dilating again, because my contractions were slowing down again at this point. So at 10:30, they started me off with a super light dose of the Pitocin. Guys, as soon as they gave me the Pitocin, I promise you, it was such a different experience. I was a lot more relaxed in the beginning part. Even though I was 9 centimeters, I felt like I was doing pretty good. I was getting exhausted because I was on like 1 hour of sleep, but I didn't feel like I was in a lot of pain until they started the Pitocin and upping my Pitocin each time that they came in to get me to start dilating more. I promise you, like, there was points that I could not even talk. It was getting so painful. I told my husband, I don't think I can have another kid, and I always wanted 4 kids. So he was like, oh my gosh, she must be in a lot of pain if she's telling me that right now. About 10:30, they kept upping the dose, upping the dose, and upping the dose. My nurse was amazing, and she knew everything that I wanted. I told her, I remember her, and I will always remember her. She was like the sweetest person ever. But she was like, I know, honey, but she was like, we really got to give this to you so you can have your natural birth. And I know that's what you want. So I totally listened to her. We did the Pitocin. 11:30, nothing had changed. They kept upping my dosage of the Pitocin to see if I could get going even more. And then at 12 o'clock, at this point, nothing had changed. I was still 9 centimeters dilated. I had this lip that just wasn't moving, they said, on my uterus. So the baby could not come down the birth canal because of this. And that was the only thing holding me back from being 10 centimeters. It was the tiniest lip that she said. She was like, it's not moving. She got a second opinion. They said the same thing. Even when the doctor came, she said the same thing. My contractions were 1 to 2 minutes apart now with the Pitocin, and they were painful, guys. They were so painful, and I was falling asleep for like 30 seconds. And then I would go back into a contraction because I was so exhausted. My body was exhausted. My mind was exhausted. I was exhausted at this point. So at 1:15, the doctor came in on Monday morning, and she said, listen, I know you've been struggling. You've been going through labor now for almost 24 hours, but she was like, this baby has to come out very soon because it's been way too long that the baby's been in there with the bowel movement. Now at this point, we're going to have NICU come in as soon as the baby is out of you. So I really need to recommend you a C-section at this point. Before the doctor had came, it was like me and my husband had 25 minutes to ourselves. He asked my mom and his mom to step out. And at this point, I was so exhausted. I was still so mad at my body because I was only 9 centimeters dilated. And I was crying. Like, you guys, thinking about it right now makes me want to cry. But I felt like such a failure that my body could not get to 10 centimeters. And I felt like I didn't understand. Like, I did everything I was supposed to. I was healthy. I made sure I did everything like I could to just be healthy and have this baby naturally. And now at this point, I was so fatigued. I was exhausted. And so I turned to him and I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, I tried everything. Not that from the beginning, he was like, you do whatever you want. Like, if you want the epidural, you get it. I was the one that was just like, no, I don't want it. So he was just like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you've done it this whole time. You've had no epidural. Like, you are the strongest person I know. Like, he was just so encouraging and motivating to me. He was like, don't worry. Like, as long as you're healthy, it doesn't matter what happens. At this point, I was like, I need to pray. I need to give it up to God and let him decide what's going to happen. I had already been 9 centimeters dilated for about a little over 4 hours at this point. When the doctor finally came, it was almost 5 hours that I was 9 centimeters. So I prayed and I said, God, I'm going to leave this up to you because I have so many people praying for me. Even though it was my worst fear to have a C-section, I know that in the end, we have these plans, but you laughed at our plans because you have totally other plans for us. And I felt like that was so true. Like, I thought, okay, I was going to have this baby naturally, that this is what was going to happen, and it totally didn't. But I left it up to him. I said, God, we have 25 minutes before this doctor comes and checks on me. If you want me to have this baby naturally, and if that's what's meant to be for me, to be healthy for the baby and for me, then you are going to make a way after all this time, and you are going to show us a miracle right now. You are going to let my body go to 10 centimeters, and I trust in you. So, and if it's not meant to be, you're not going to let that happen. So I'm going to trust in you and not be upset. So the doctor finally came in at 1:15 and she checked me again. And at this point, I was still 9 centimeters. And at this point, she recommended I have a C-section. She strongly recommended because the baby had already made a bowel movement. So at this point, I turned to my husband and I said, let's do it, because I didn't want him to be at risk at this point, and I was just concerned about him. So at this point, they started prepping me super, super fast. It all happened, I mean, fast. They brought out the paperwork. I signed it to do the C-section, and things were moving fast. Like, they had me prepped and everything within 15 to 20 minutes. Seems really fast, but when you're contracting, it also seems like a lifetime, because I was contracting at this point every 30 to 45 seconds. It was so painful. So they prepped me and everything. I was getting a little worried because the room that they started prepping me in, I threw up right before I walked in the room. I also was laying down and they were about to start everything on me, and one of the monitors wasn't working, and the epidural lady was freaking out. She was like, we can't be in here. I'm not gonna be able to monitor her. We need to switch rooms. Like, everything was just moving so fast paced, which was freaking me out even more. And I was like, okay, God, I know that you're in control, and I'm just gonna trust in you. They moved me to another room and they started prepping me again for the epidural. I don't even know if that's what it's called when it's like a spinal one. I'm not sure, but that's what happened. When I tell you that you lose all shame in yourself about being naked, about showing your boobs, about showing your butt, like, you lose it all in there. Like, you do not even care who sees you at your worst. I had mascara running down my face. My mom tried to tell me to fix my makeup so I would look good, and even my mother-in-law were like, I think you should touch up your makeup a little. I was like, I don't care. I'm having a baby right now. I am in so much pain. I can't even think about what my makeup looks like right now, which once I look back on the pictures after, I was like, why didn't I fix my makeup? But it doesn't matter. It is what it is. I was holding my doctor's hand, like, as I was getting the epidural put in. She was helping me breathe. Like, she was holding my hands. We were face to face. Like, I promise you, I was crying. My husband wasn't allowed to be in there yet. And she just comforted me so much in that time. Like, she hyped me up before the epidural and I was getting prepped. Like, she made me feel like I was just pumped to do this. So, and see my baby finally. So I was really appreciative of all the staff. They were amazing. And they made everything just a lot more calm and smooth for me. Because I'm telling you, this was my worst fear and it was coming true. When I finally started feeling the effects of the epidural, they started prepping everything. Within a few minutes, they brought in my husband because they were about to start. And the funny thing is, when he came in, I wish he was here to tell you the story. He was trying to keep it together, but he was scared because he didn't ever want to see me on the table like that. And it's just never a good feeling. When he came in, I was feeling really good because I was already on the drugs that they'd given me, so I could feel nothing at all. which was awesome because I was in so much pain with the contractions at the end with the Pitocin, that it was awesome to like finally feel like some relief. So when he came in, he was like, "How are you doing, baby?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm doing real good. My girl Peggy, she got me hooked up over here with the good stuff. Like, I'm feeling great. Don't even worry. Let's do this." And he started giggling because he was like, "I could tell you were really on some good drugs because you were really, really scared before." And I was like, I was. But even though I was on the drugs, I constantly was in prayer with God because, again, I told you this was my worst fear, my biggest anxiety, my biggest, like, I was so anxious about this, and my worst fear was coming true. When it was finally happening, I had this one verse in my head, and that will forever be the song that I remember my son because of, and it makes me want to cry. But I had to cling to it because throughout my entire labor, that was what I was clinging to and saying over and over in my head, because I knew I was going to be okay, and I knew God was in control of everything. Even though it was my worst fear, I knew that he was in control and going to take care of me and my baby. I was never scared for that. I was just scared of the unknown. When they started, I was scared. So the first thing that came out of my mouth was Waymaker, Miracle Worker, Promise Keeper, Light in the Darkness. And that song, Waymaker, that was my rock. Like, that song played the week before at church, and it was the first time I had really listened to the lyrics. I had heard it a few times before, but it was the first time that I really meditated on the lyrics at church, and that song was put in my life at that time, because at that time I was like, I needed that. I needed to continue to repeat those words, that he is a way maker, a miracle worker, like a promise keeper. He was going to keep me safe, and a light in the darkness. Like, no matter what, everything was going to be okay at the end. So I kept repeating that over and over, and my husband was like, "What are you saying?" And I just started saying it louder, and he just started like crying. He was like, that was what I needed to hear at that moment, because he was scared too. We were both scared. So now that is the song that we're gonna always remember our son by. And it was just so beautiful in that moment that we were able to have that intimate moment with God being there. In our worst scenario, we had the most beautiful experience, because once they started everything like that and they got the baby out, they asked my husband to just stand up. They were like, "Okay, Dad, stand up and tell Mom what the baby's gender is." My husband was speechless for like 20 seconds, it felt like, but it probably was only like 5, but to me it felt like 20 seconds. He was like, the first thing I saw were these huge feet, and then I remembered, oh my gosh, I'm looking for the gender. And then he whispered to me, he was like, "It's a boy." We were both crying so hard. Oh my gosh, it was just so emotional. They were cleaning him up and checking him out and stuff like that, and then he was crying. Oh my gosh, they were like, "This kid has some lungs on him." He was crying the whole entire time. They brought him over to us. As soon as he got close to us, he stopped crying immediately. It was so beautiful, and that was the first time that we seen him. It was definitely not what I expected, but I still wouldn't take anything away. I wouldn't change anything. Everything happened the way it was supposed to, and our beautiful baby boy is here now, and that is all that matters to me, is that he is safe and I was safe, and we have this new beautiful life. And being a mom to that sweet little boy is everything to me. He makes everything worth it. So yeah, I'm gonna quickly introduce you guys to him. So I just finished breastfeeding right now. This is Sky. So he's dead asleep right now. This is Louis the third, after my husband and father-in-law. We call him Luisito, but he is the sweetest little angel baby ever. Let me like flip him around if I can. And he really is a milk monster. He loves mama's milk. Right, baby? This is him. Yeah. We are probably gonna take a nap because we are super tired. Sky, she always wants to give him kisses. He is the sweetest little human ever. I could just eat him up. Those chicks are everything. And please, if you have anything negative to say, I will block you. So please do not say anything negative. I just feel like I have to say that because I feel like there could be some just mean people out there. I can't believe my husband and I created this. Like, we always say that, like, this is you and I. Like, oh my gosh, it's just the sweetest thing. We just look at him and we're like, oh, we love him so much. Okay, we're gonna take a nap now because we're both pooped.